You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 115. And now, here are Jeff and Ian.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tricorder Transmissions original mission once again. Tonight, we are going to be covering Gold Key Comics issue number 26, The Perfect Dream. I am your host, Jeff Hewlett, as always, and with me is my co-chair for the Gold Key Comics series, Mr. Ian Adams.
Hello.
Hello to you, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, okay. You had to think about it a little bit there. Is it the comic? Is it the comic?
No. You know, I was good regardless of whether or not I read this comic. I mean, mostly, you know, I'm going home soon, so that's pretty prime in my mind right now.
Yes, you've been tweeting quite a bit that you're going home in about 2.5 weeks. So
Yep.
This recording will be released long after that, but
Yeah.
It's going to be good by the time you get, maybe when this is released, you'll actually be home. So how long are you going to be home for?
At least a month, and then
good.
I'm going to try to get out somewhere again.
Okay, cool. Well, we will keep the audience up to date as to Mr. Adams' travels in the Merchant Marine out there. Maybe you'll wind up, the Enterprise is decommissioned, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but it is going to end up just across the water from Seattle.
Oh, all right. Well, they may need people to work on
it. To tear it down.
I hope not. But all right, so this comic is written by John David Warner, and this is kind of exciting because the writer of The Mummies of Hetius 7, the comic that both Ian and I loved, is returning for his second foray into the Gold Key writing universe. So hoping that this comic lives up to the legacy of the Mummies.
Knock on wood.
All right, so here I did. I have knocked. So artist is Alberto Giletti again, and inks were by Angelo Todaro. Cover art by Ian's favorite, Mr. George Wilson. This is published in September of 1974, which is 1 month before my date of birth. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
I was born the next month of this comic. So this was the current Gold Key when Jeff Hewlett was brought into this world. Pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, a little blast from the past here. I hope it's good. And, well, you know, and this is the weird thing. This one is shorter than most. This is only 25 pages.
It did feel shorter.
Yeah, I was scratching my head. Most of them are 32. I don't know what the deal was with this. I wish I had more information on why it was shorter, but I couldn't really find anything out there about this specific issue, aside from the normal Memory Alpha scant record that didn't have much in it. But
well, it looks like the next issue is also the same length. And the one after that, so maybe they just went to a shorter
maybe they were trying to save money.
Yeah.
Maybe they're saving money and jacking up the cover price. Because we're up to a quarter now. We're up to 25 cents.
So big spenders.
Yeah, well, it's been going up quite a... I mean, this is more than double the original cover price. And, you know, this is only, 26 issues in. So this is a couple of years after they started coming out. And next thing you know, they're doubling in price. So I haven't looked at the end of the series, but I wonder how high they go.
Right. Didn't they end up in the... started in the late 60s while the series was still going, though?
Yeah, yep. They did. So it's been probably 5 years, 6 years, I guess. I think inflation.
Yeah.
That was the 70s. Things were going up. You know.
We'll blame it on the oil crisis or something.
Yeah, well, everybody needed something to read while they were sitting in the lines at the gas station.
Boom. And demand went up.
Yep. And
so they were like,
hey,
Star Trek for a quarter.
we can make some serious cash here. People are going to need comic books and periodicals to keep in their cars while they're sitting waiting for their gas pump turn. Let's see. Star date on this one is interesting. 30/19.12. So it's a little high. Pretty cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the cover before we get into the issue proper here. And this is a kind of a weird cover in my mind. So you've got the image of a what appears to be like a samurai warrior wielding a sword, and like he's about to turn around and take a swipe at Mr. Spock, who actually looks just like Mr. Spock, which is the covers usually don't look like the characters that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Looks like Spock's about to do some kung fu moves or something.
Right. One thing that I just, because I always notice the rank braids, Spock is only a lieutenant here.
Oh, look at that. You are good at noticing these things. It's a shame we can't see the rank insignias on the many what appear to be clones of Mr. Spock.
The test tube Spocks.
Test tube Spocks, yeah. Yeah, there's 7 glass cylinders, which are not in a row, mind you. They're kind of in a semicircle here, and they're extending into the distance, and each one appears to have a duplicate of Mr. Spock within it, and they're kind of cramped. Those little tubes. Looks like he almost doesn't fit in there.
I would not want to be in one of those.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's the front one here looks like it's almost it's on the top of his head is almost pressed against the top glass. So that's a really tight space in there. Yeah, he probably can't even turn around. I hope he's in some sort of a stasis or something, that Spock clone, because that'd be really, really unpleasant. But
well, he'd just use his Vulcan mind to push past any discomfort.
Yeah, well, we assume that it's an exact copy of Spock, so we hope that he has all of his faculties with him. And there's 7 cylinders, and they extend into the background and kind of fade into a giant disembodied head that's kind of floating back there, and he's watching the fight going on.
Yeah.
And, we don't really know who he is at this point, but he looks very upset.
He does not look happy. Maybe it's the Fu Manchu.
Yeah, and this, by the way, that's a very stereotypical appearance for an Asian man back then. I mean, if you watch a lot of 60s TV, I mean, the Monkees comes to mind. I remember there were a couple episodes of the Monkees where they'd have a guy dressed up as an older Asian man. He always looked just like that.
Yeah, even that same sort of beanie cap thing, the name of which escapes me.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of that either. But that the Fu Manchu and the high eyebrows, that is very, very stereotypical. And if this was a TV show, I bet you he'd have the stereotypical accent.
Oh, well, without question, yeah.
But it is a pretty good likeness, though. The artwork is very good. I think that face looks very detailed.
Oh yeah.
Again,
it's an interesting composition.
It is, and I think Mr. Spock actually. It's what really surprised me the most, though, is the fact that Spock does look very Spock-like on this cover, and we've seen him on covers before. And it always seemed like he was off. I think this is the closest cover Spock I've seen to Nimoy so far.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And we got as we always do, we have a bit of a teaser text. There's a little tagline here on the cover, and it reads, "A secret space lab wants Mr. Spock's help, ... as a guinea pig."
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, my goodness. So I guess maybe we can assume that the disembodied floating head is that of this scientist that works in this space lab who wants to use Spock as a guinea pig. So
that would have been my assumption.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe one, especially since we see what appear to be Spock duplicates or clones. So I guess that's what they mean by Spock. it's foreshadowing very well what's going to happen in the issue. So that's a little bit different too than some of the covers we've seen in the past that don't really necessarily reflect what the issue is about. But this one's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, I mean, the test tube Spocks are receding into this guy's head. It's kind of
or are they coming out of his head?
Could be either way.
All right. So any other thoughts on the cover before we jump into the issue proper?
No, it's a pretty straightforward one. It's interesting. It's a good composition. I still love this guy's artwork, and I'm glad that they brought him on.
Yeah, I you know what? On a closing note, I really like the kilt skirt armor on the samurai warrior. I love the color choices. There's like a metallic purple and a metallic blue, and they alternate the tiles. I think that's really cool artwork in my opinion. I love the color choice there. Very, very neat. So, and he's got purple socks.
Right.
Pretty cool. All right. So, as we do with every one of these issues, we will tell you guys that we're about to start talking about the issue itself. So if you do not want this to be spoiled for you, please pause us now, stop us now, go ahead and grab a copy of this comic and read up and come back and join us as we talk through it. And we are going to jump into the teaser page in 3, 2, 1. All right. So again, another teaser page that has nothing to do with the cover. So I guess we got a new trend on our hands here.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the shorter format.
Yeah,
right?
Perhaps. Yeah, maybe we'll have a
They're
little
not
less
spending that
time.
extra page with just reiterating what's on the cover.
Yeah, that's a good point. Noticing, the shorter format, maybe we'll get a little less wasted space, and we'll have to move even more quickly through the stories. But I like this teaser page. I think the artwork is really good. On this, I love this whole exploding planet that looks kind of like a ball of magma with the burnt crusty pieces flying off.
Yeah. It's a compelling hook just visually.
Yeah, definitely is. And you've got rings around this planet as well, which we don't see a lot of ringed planets in Star Trek or in Gold Key. Rather, I've only seen maybe one, I think, so far.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just one of those things that they like to keep special.
Entirely possible. But on this teaser page, there are actually 2 boxes of text, and I will say that those 2 boxes of texts foreshadow the amount of text that's in this issue.
Not one.
Oh God, this is probably one of the most wordy Gold Keys we've seen. So guys, prepare yourself when you read this one for a very dialogue-heavy issue. I'll read both of these text boxes, and they're not super long, but they're very interesting, I think. So the first one reads, Federation Board of Inquiry, Stardate 3020.4, investigation into possible Federation involvement in annihilation of a neutral planet body. Recorder's log testimony of Captain James T. Kirk. So not a captain's log, but a statement of a recording of a board of inquiry starting up here. So I guess this could be a flashback issue.
Right. Yeah, and the next one even has quotes, so it's clear that we're then listening to Kirk's recorded testimony.
Yes, which also is yelled.
So it's kind of like a log, right?
Yeah, it's yelled and screamed like every other Goldkeeper dialogue. He yells into his recorder. The second box here is a quote, I guess, from Kirk's testimony. It says, members of the board, the issues at point are of a delicate diplomatic balance. Therefore, so that you may understand the Enterprise's position, I must carefully reconstruct the events that took place on Rifus L. ... So we've got more to come. So this is the beginning of Captain Kirk's retrospective of the events that led up to maybe this planet's destruction, we're going to assume?
It seems that way.
Certainly does. Anything else jump to mind about this teaser page?
Well, so it's Rifus L, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if that L is actually the Roman numeral for 50. Like it's the 50th planet in the thing, right? Because the way that it's written, you could very easily replace that L with a VI or something, right?
All right. Good. I didn't even think about that. You could be right. This could be Rifus 50. We'll have to look and see inside the issue if there's any other references to other planets nearby.
Yeah.
See if maybe they mention another Rifus planet. Possibly. But that's a good pickup. Yeah, it could be Rifus 50. I hope it's not Rifus 50. That's a lot of planets in it.
That is a lot of planets.
How many of them are Class M? I don't know.
Only one.
And not anymore. It's not.
Yeah, not anymore, right?
Yeah. So anything else?
No, just I love this page.
Yeah.
It was a great way to start the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Great action shot. I love this artwork. Alberto did another phenomenal job. Even the starscape in the background is really cool. There's a little swirly part in the lower right-hand corner that I really like.
Oh, yeah.
So pretty neat. And there's looks like another planet off in the background in the upper right, or a moon, potentially. All right. So we're going to start talking about the story here, starting out with page 1 of the comic. And the story kind of goes while they're heading out on some data maneuvers to an unexplored. Oh God, here we go with another difficult one. I'm not quite sure how to say this. Triquilius.
I went with Triquilus.
Yeah, I think Triquilus. So Triquilus. Yeah, we'll go with that. Triquilus region. So the Enterprise detects an object of incredible mass and weight, which is slowly moving towards them through space. So the object, after a little bit of examination, turns out to be a planet. However, Mr. Spock states that it is moving not in an orbit around anything, but in a straight line. So there's some bright glowing rings around the planet that they surmise are serving the purpose of a sun, since the planet is not revolving around a sun and does not have a sun. They're assuming that these rings are providing the same functionality that a sun would in its absence. So the sensors show that there is life on the planet. And of course, Kirk orders the ship to take orbit around it. And before long, he is beaming down with another questionable away team of Mr. Spock, Lieutenant Uhura, and Mr. Sulu, and 2 other crew members in order to do some investigative work. And they arrive on the planet. And of course, like so many other planets in the original series and in the animated series and in the comics, it is the most beautiful planet they've ever seen. They've never seen anything like it. And even Kirk says it's stunning. But showing his reverence of his own history, he says all that beauty could be hiding something. So be alert. So it looks like at least Kirk is finally starting to wake up a little bit and understand that he's always beaming himself into dangerous scenarios.
Yeah.
So Spock, I don't know. This is weird. Spock kind of throws out some sort of quasi Vulcan statement here. It says, "I fail to grasp why humans cannot face beauty without doubting or destroying it, or both." I can see him saying that, I guess, or something similar. Yeah. It seems a little harsh for Spock.
Well, let's come back to this because I have some thoughts on that.
Okay, cool. All right, let's not stay. All right, so there's a little bit more to go here before we get to the end of this first section. So right then, the landing party is attacked by something they call a carnivore, which for some reason looks a hell of a lot like a panther. Monotone panthers, one color. Kirk is able to stop the creature by shooting it with his phaser, but that just brings more of them into the fray. They start jumping out from all around. So a huge flock of birds also begin circling over them. And they start to try to defend themselves, and a large group of humanoids wearing Japanese-style clothes appear. One of them is a samurai warrior who calls out to the Enterprise landing party, telling them to fall to the ground and allow their small band to fend off these creatures. So they dispatch the carnivores and the birds, and Sulu makes a statement that he thinks they're using a variation of samurai technique used in ancient Japan. Mm-hmm. So the aliens, once the fray is over, the aliens offer to take the Enterprise crew back to their village and welcome them. So they get back to the village, and there's a woman by the name of Ashino. She identifies as Ashino of the Third Dan and welcomes them to the imperial city of Shando Ho, where they have some quarters waiting for our guests. So Uhura is overcome by the beauty of the city and its temples and gardens, and is telling Kirk how perfect she thinks it is. And you know what? I'm going to hold off on this part until we get to
the interesting verb.
Yes. This is wow. This is a very Gold Key-esque verb in here. So Ashino introduces them to a man by the name of Iko of the First Dan. So we're getting some idea that there's several layers to this society, since Ashino is of the Third Dan and Iko is of the First Dan. And Iko is to attend to their needs. So later on, Kirk and Spock are in their quarters discussing what's been going on. And Spock says that he thinks they're surrounded by absolute perfection, a harmony between human beings, nature, and architecture. And he goes on to say, in all of their travels, he has found humans incapable of such perfection. Also, of all the people he's observed, large numbers look alike, which is a very good observation on his part. He said, out of over 100 people, I've only seen 6 faces. So Kirk replies that maybe they're androids, but the tricorder is insisting that they're human. So something doesn't add up. So we're going to stop here. This is page 7, by the way, that we're stopping on for all of you folks out there listening along. Let's see. Let's roll back to the first page and let's talk about the Enterprise on panel 1 of the first page. We've got another disproportionate Enterprise here.
Yeah.
The saucer is out of proportion.
Not Giolitti's best Enterprise, let's just say.
No, and the saucer section is extremely fat.
Yeah, well, the bottom part, yeah.
The bottom protrudes quite far.
In fact, it looks like if you turned it over, it looks like one of those old flying saucers. Like, Day the Earth Stood Still or that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, good call. Gort might come out of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good call. I saw that and I thought of you immediately.
Yeah, it's well, at least you can tell it's the Enterprise.
Yes, at least you can tell. Speaking of being able to tell things, look who appears finally.
Yeah, Chekhov.
Doesn't say anything.
Nope, still not.
We get a good likeness of Chekhov here.
Yeah, it is really good. Yeah. And I was trying to think. I can't remember any publicity stills or anything like that of Chekhov in that pose, but boy, it really looks like him.
It certainly does, and they got the hair right too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't. It's a good call. I don't remember any publicity shots of him looking like that either. So maybe he kind of just interpreted it from another photo that he saw.
Could be, and if we're wrong, please send us a photo.
Yeah.
But I think this is just Giolitti being really, really good.
Yeah, it's an excellent likeness. So I'm glad to see him depicted so well. I wish he had more of a role in the issue, but nice to finally see him. So, so what about the science of a planet with no sun that has rings that substitute as its sun? I'm not sure how that would work.
It's a rogue planet, and somehow it has rings that, it's...
you would think maybe the rings
iffy.
would... Yeah, wouldn't the rings dissipate if it was moving? Like maybe it's moving slow enough.
Because I mean, Saturn keeps its rings, right? Like, and it's moving.
Yeah, but the planet, they don't say if the planet itself is spinning while it's moving, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Because that is kind of what keeps it there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps. Yeah. It's an interesting idea because I don't want to flip the cards on what the planet is, but well, I guess because it's not. I'm flipping the cards. I'm not going to flip the cards. I'm going to hold on to it for later. But we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
Because there may be the reason why those rings stay in place. But another bizarre landing party, and a huge landing party this time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And a non-white Uhura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Uhura is finally the correct skin color, but her name is still misspelled.
Well, kind of the correct. I mean,
closer, much closer.
It's 1970s newsprint colors, so she kind of looks like more on the grayish side, but
she's not Caucasian,
right?
At this point. It's kind of like a brownish gray.
Yeah,
not perfect, but it's a move in the right direction.
Yep.
But Nurse Chapel, in a completely different appearance than the previous issue, with Nurse Chapel as a redhead. Right. So this is
why not?
Yeah, I guess.
She changed her appearance a lot, even just over the series, let alone throughout the movies and stuff. So
yeah, true.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, fair enough. And a named red shirt security officer,
yes.
Manning.
Good old Manning.
How often does that happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, as soon as that carnivore comes out,
who does it go after?
Yep, we find out why they brought the red shirt along, and he is a red shirt. He's not one of those weird green shirts.
Yeah, it is a very large landing party. For Gold Key standards, it's very large.
6 people.
And 5 of the 6 people are key Enterprise players.
Right.
So a vast majority of the ship's key crew is off on the landing party. So who's left running the show? Scotty and Chekhov? And Dr. McCoy?
I guess Scotty would be in charge.
We'll find out later on.
Yeah. So let's talk about the carnivore thing. Because
carnivore gets a ding.
That's my ding for this issue. Because it's like, of all the things you could, Captain, a carnivore is attacking Manning, and then on the next page, right? They resemble Earth ravens, but they appear also to be carnivals.
Yeah.
It's like the carnival. First of all, ravens do eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget that. But why does everything have to be carnivorous? And why do you have to specifically call them carnivores? You can't just be like, it's because, so the first one, it's obviously, like a panther or cougar kind of thing. Call it a big cat or for one thing, cat, a lot quicker to say than carnivore.
Yes. Agreed.
Right?
That was
birds, a lot shorter than carnivore.
Yeah, I was kind of mystified that they were able to identify the Earth ravens, but not the Earth panther or Earth cougar or jungle cat or something of that nature.
And also, sorry, but
no,
this whole thing. Okay, I could see them going after the label of carnivore for the cat, in that, it's attacking a guy, presumably to eat him. The ravens are still flying they're off in the distance, and they're like, they appear to also be carnivores. How can you tell that? How can you tell their dietary habits when they're just flying around off in the distance.
Yeah, they're just kind of, yeah, I'm looking at that panel now, and they're just kind of flying in a formation towards,
Yeah.
and they do say, yeah, carnivores. Yep, it says carnivores in that frame before the ravens actually reach them. Huh.
It was so weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. So this is, but I have to say one thing that I like about this is that if this was a previous issue and it was a longer issue, this sequence would have extended for probably 2 more
Oh my
pages.
God, yes.
At least with the attack. So it's only a few panels that depict the various attacks by the animals and the arrival of the saviors who come along and bail the landing party out. So that's kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
In a way. So let's see. I don't, speaking of the carnivores, what are the odds? I mean, that they would encounter animals that looked so much like those of Earth. I mean, this seems to be another. I mean, it's a comic book. They could have drawn them looking like anything they wanted. So it was a little bit strange to me that they opted to go with the familiar.
So I have a hypothesis about that, but I want to save it for later when there's the reveal about, the plot reveal.
Fair enough.
But I do have an idea for that.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll hold off. We'll hold off on that. Page 5, panel 2, Wizard of Oz reference there.
Oh yeah, the yellow brick road into this forest.
Yep. I always like references to other works.
Oh yeah. It's too bad there were ravens and not monkey birds, right?
Yeah, oh, see, now there's an option there. They could have gone with that had they went with the reference, but I guess maybe Alberto didn't pick up on that Wizard of Oz reference as he was doing the artwork for this. But all right, let's get to this strange verb that Uhura uses. So I'm assuming that Uhura, when she's talking about the beauty of the city, she mentions that she, now this is going to sound weird, she vidsorbed these enchanted cities as a child, and I'm assuming that means she saw videos of them maybe in school or as a child, like a documentaries thing.
Right.
Vidsorbed, VID-sorbed.
Like absorbed, except vidsorbed.
Vidsorbed, which, that struck me as very odd. I had to write that down and talk. I knew you'd pick up on it too.
Right. Like it almost makes you feel like, because with the whole absorption aspect, like, they just transmitted the video images directly into her brain or something. Like, it's just such a weird verb.
Well, maybe you're onto something. Maybe they had some sort of technology when Uhura was younger that they beamed the images directly into her head. It stands to reason that they could have some sort of training that you see rapid successions of things and absorb them in a way, and then you know them, kind of like the Matrix, right? Where they upload.
Yeah, and then suddenly you know kung fu.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's what vidsorbed means, or maybe they just stick a VHS tape on you and you just kind of let it sit there and you soak up whatever's on it. You absorb what's on the videotape. So go ahead.
No, it was a terrible joke.
Okay, never mind.
I'll spare you all.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who just smiled who are listening to this show. I'm just kidding. So page 7, panel number 2, I just have to say that is a fantastic Kirk pose. That is very Kirk-like.
Oh, yeah.
He's got his foot up on a table, looking out the window, leaning on his leg, with his other hand placed against his hip as he's pontificating about what is going on around them. I thought that was a really great pose for Kirk. Some good likenesses on this page, too. I think the next panel 3, has a really good Kirk and a really good Spock. Very good close-ups.
Yeah, they look a lot like him.
Yeah, very much so. Anything you want to throw out there on this section?
Well, there's kind of the theme that they're going with here, right? You know, everyone here is clearly Japanese, right? And you know, even the architecture and everything, all Japanese. And then Spock in that pose panel on page 7, you know, he's remarking about the absolute perfection, a harmony between human beings and nature and architecture. And it's kind of just a, you know, an overused trope, you know, the old timey people with the weird culture that we don't understand are, you know, in perfect harmony between nature and, you know, we silly people with our technology and stuff have been unable to grasp the beauty and the simplicity of that earlier time. And it there's something about it that bugs me, right? Because
especially because every time they say something like that, they come in and screw it up.
right. So, I mean, the one thing that bugs me about it is just Spock's comments there that, you know, in all our travels, I've found humans incapable of such perfection. And yet the whole thing here is that, you know, these are supposedly, you know, like medieval Japanese people on a planet. So, like, you know, how about those humans, you know? But just the trope itself just kind of bugs me in a way that I'm not quite able to articulate. But there's just something about it.
It does seem to happen in Trek quite often. These idyllic societies that turn out to be not very idyllic.
Right. You know,
due to
kind
the
of
intervention of the Enterprise crew.
Right. Right. Like the Apple in the original series, you know, is a great example of that. You know, of course, in that one, they're being, you know, ruled by a snake head computer thing, but you know, so it's a little bit different here. But still, I don't know. There's just something about it that's just maybe it's just the heavy-handedness of it.
Yeah, they hit you over the head with it. At least Spock hits you over the head with it, and he's very. I think he's unnecessarily blunt about it. There's a lot of digs about humans.
Yeah.
And in two of the statements that he's made so far, the first one was about humans not being able to understand beauty or destroying it, and,
right.
And then now they're incapable of this type of perfection. So
right.
Spock is really clearly showing disdain for humans in this issue.
Yeah, and then when I first read it on this page, I thought Spock was being racist.
Whoa!
Right? Because he's like, you know, out of over 100 people, I've only seen 6 faces. You know, because they all look alike. I was like, oh God, Spock, what are you doing? And you know, it kind of made sense as it went on, but at the time, I was like, what? What are you doing, Spock?
Thankfully, Kirk absolves him right in the next bubble underneath that.
Yeah, they're androids, you know, so obviously they're like, you know, built or whatever. But yeah, when I first read that, I was like, oh God, no, what are you doing?
Oh man, all right. Anything else in this section before we move along?
Well, so the last observation that I had, right? So assuming that these are all like Japanese pronunciations, right, where each vowel only has one type of pronunciation, then that guy's name would be Ekoe, which, if you drop the off the end, is echo, which kind of goes into the whole, you know, androidy duplicate-y thingy.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that's nice.
I mean, maybe it's a stretch, but
no, we should look up what Oshino means.
If it means anything.
Maybe it also means some sort of duplicate or a copy. But Yeah, good point. All right. So picking up on page number 8. So over the next several days, so this is the landing party is there for a couple of days, which is usually you don't get that kind of explanation about how much time they spent in a certain place. But it says over the next several days, Ashino spends quite a bit of time with Kirk and the other landing party members, seeming to be curious about them just like they are about her. At one point, Echo questions one of Ashino's statements and she is shocked by it. There's a bit of an exchange that goes back and forth where Echo says that it is genetically impossible for a first Dan member to question things, but he has done it. So he's trying to understand why he's able to do something that he's been told is impossible for someone of his station. So the Enterprise landing party is very confused by that. Later, Ashino tells one of the elders about Echo's outburst, and the elder says that we only have one course of action. He is one of quote unquote them, and he must be dealt with accordingly. So Spock meets with Echo privately, and he finds that Echo is constructing a very delicate looking model of a temple. Spock questions him about it, and Echo becomes very upset. He says that he can't be constructing anything. He is of the first Dan, and his functions do not allow for creating anything. And he calls the small temple he's creating a semi-quadrantal, psi-sided, conversational nothing, or conversional nothing.
Right.
It's a very strange collection of words. Spock is very curious about Echo's unhappiness. Later, while on a trip into the wilderness, Spock returns to the area where they first encountered the carnivores, and he believes that they're guarding something. So he keeps exploring and finds out his suspicions are correct. There is a large temple deep in the wilderness, and the tricorder readings indicate there is a tremendous force emanating from within it. But, of course, it's like nothing they've ever encountered before. Spock sneaks inside the temple for a closer look without actually telling anybody what he's doing, of course. So, meanwhile, back in the village, Echo gives Kirk and the others his model and tells them of his desire to leave the planet. Just then, a group of guards breaks into the room and takes Echo away. And Echo yells that they're collectors and they want to take him to a place called the Garden of Beauty and execute him. And and the guards say that he's a mutant and a mental deviant, and the little model that they're holding is the proof of that, and it is beyond the capabilities of a normal first Dan to create that model. So the Enterprise crew gets into a fight with the guards to protect Echo, but Ashino arrives with reinforcements and tells them they must stop and not interfere with the ways of the people, and there's nothing that they can do. So we're going to stop here, and this is page 14. Let's roll back a little to page number 9, panel 1. Sulu's face on page 9, panel 1 is bizarrely distorted looking. It's almost scary looking to me. I don't know. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, it's like his mouth got moved up and then his eyes just
wider
started. They decided they didn't like each other anymore and they just started migrating to the sides of his head.
Yeah, the panel underneath that, he looks fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but yeah, his mouth looks like it's way too far up and his eyes are spread way too far apart. It's a very, very bizarre look. So, page 9, panel 2 is Sulu essentially telling Ashino about other worlds up in space. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a Prime Directive violation right there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, contacting them in the first place was kind of a Prime Directive but yeah, like they're.
Well, they were being attacked and were saved. I don't know if they intended to make contact with the alien people, but just kind of happened. But this is a very intentional breach. in my mind.
Right.
Of the Prime.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of a a North Star type of situation where they figure that these are human, long lost humans, and so like they deserve to know about where they came from and that sort of thing.
Perhaps.
But it's kind of sketchy, and it came kind of easily to him, right? He's like, oh no, see, you can't see them because there's no night on this planet. But there's like here's the nature of your planet, right? There's no revolving. Remember we were talking about that earlier?
Yep.
And then B, there are worlds beyond that sky, and that's just all came really, really easily. Darkness, if you had it, you could see a universe of glowing specks, each speck a blazing sun. Yeah, like she knows what a sun is.
Oh yeah, good call. They don't have one; they have rings.
Right.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't know what a sun was.
Except, as we learn here, Yamoto, the Master One, has told them that many times. So apparently there's some sort of like education program that's done by a Master One, as they say.
But only applied to certain societal levels, right? Only certain groups of Dans, quote unquote.
Right. And I kind of like the whole sort of construct they're doing with the first dawn, second dawn, third dawn, with the sort of roles. What's the word I'm looking for? Castes, right? Like everyone is in their particular caste, and they can't break out of it, and it's kind of a commentary on that.
Yep. And obviously the first Dan or first Dons rather are the lower class, and they're more of the laborers.
Yeah, kind of servants, and and I love Echo's his dialogue when Spock is observing him constructing the little model. He's like, constructing, Spock? How can I be constructing? I'm a first Don. My functions don't allow for creating. And this whole like super hyper sarcastic tone that he takes is just it's so great.
Well, I had assumed, thinking back on that, I had assumed that he felt maybe he was on the watch list at that point because of his earlier outbursts, and in case anybody was listening, he was denouncing what he was doing and saying, he's like, "Oh no, I'm not making another transgression here. I'm just keep myself busy making this thing, which is a nothing." But
and then his whole I see demon masks, I see people light up, and then just the way that he's describing it, rising out of great wells, definitely harkens back to the the test tube Spocks on the cover.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that.
Yeah, and this was where I was starting to sort of pick together like the first thing that I thought of. Maybe it's just decades of sci-fi conditioning me, but I just instantly thought clones.
Yep. So Kirk's assumption that they were androids earlier could be off.
Right.
And it seems
or maybe they're not. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but we'll find out. So we've got two theories. One is Ian's and one is Kirk's. So we'll see whose theory pans out. Let's see. Page 12, panel 1 mentions a tricorder, although it is separated by a dash, tricorder. I always like when they bring the terminology in and use it correctly. And what Spock is holding in his hand kind of looks tricorderish.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, phaser's a little bit off, but closer than usual.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. Colors are wrong, but that's I guess, an effect of the inking process.
Yeah, and then here again we've got Captain Kirk to Mr. Spock. Spock, I think we'd better head back. If we go any further, we're sure to run into those carnivores again.
They keep using carnivore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do not think that word means what he thinks it means.
No. The dragon over the door.
Oh, over the door? Yeah.
On page 12. I love it. It looks really cool, but it looks really wrong. From an architectural perspective, I'm like, it looks
yeah.
an afterthought. It's like, well, let's throw something on this door to make it look more Japanese.
Yeah.
So what could we do? Throw a dragon, but the way it's actually formed around the edges of the door, it's kind of overlapping part of the door frame, and on the other side, it's not. And I just thought it was a very strange way to draw that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of ad hoc, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But I still give him points though because I love Chinese dragons.
Yes, it is very cool.
I always have.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where I wish the inking process was better back then, so it could have been a little more detailed color-wise. It's one color, well, two colors if you count the black shading.
Right.
But you lose a lot of the facial detail that is sort of kind of present. If you zoom in on this, you can see there's clearly eyes and a nose there.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been pretty awesome if they could have done some more color work on that.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's one of those situations where I wish that we had access to, the original pages.
Yeah.
Because, like those are like 11 inches by 17 inches. And I think that's right. No, that must be bigger than that. Anyway, I forget. But the point being that the Bristol board that they would draw these on is a lot bigger. And so I'm sure that all of that detail looks amazing, close up on the original.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Well, I'm assuming that IDW, when they reprinted them, went back to the originals, right?
Well, so what they did. So I looked at them, and they've got it's not the sort of duotone colors,
Mm-hmm.
like the dots.
Yep.
It's solid colors. So it makes it clear that they went through and redid all the colors in computer, but they left, from what I can tell, all the colors the same.
Okay.
So I think they were going for more of a, how the remasters of TOS were, rather than do all new special effects, they would just, recreate the original special effects on a computer so that you'd have like a higher resolution, kind of crisper copy. It kind of felt like that, so that it was just, okay, well, the colors won't just be a whole bunch of dots, but let's still try to reproduce the way that it looked. That's kind of the feel that I got from looking over the IDW reprints.
Okay. Well, that's helpful, actually. Let's see what else. Oh, I love this. Page 14, panel 2. Uhura is kicking some butt.
Oh yeah.
So instead of the tripping and falling, hapless Uhura from previous issues,
right,
we are now getting, more Uhura heroism. So I love that they're starting to treat her well in these comics. She's shoving one of the guards down, part of the fight, winning her part of the fight, is pretty cool. Very good action shot, while Sulu's in the foreground doing some karate chop type moves.
Yeah. And then apparently picking up a guy's sword, and then the next one using it. He's going to, I guess, chop someone down.
Yeah, and on the previous panel, Uhura seems to be one of the main catalysts in starting this brawl, because as Echo's being taken away, Uhura says, "Captain, we can't just stand here and let this atrocity happen. I don't care what Federation regulations say." So she's tossing aside Federation regulations and actually alluding to the non-interference policy, right? So I really like that, but it gives me a kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. So wouldn't you think that they would still follow Kirk's orders? Wouldn't they still wait until Kirk said to attack, or I mean,
You would hope.
You would hope, but they not only do they violate the Prime Directive wantonly, but they also are insubordinate at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
Kirk doesn't say anything at all.
No, not at all. But you do see him kind of, he's got a fist and he's in kind of an action pose. It looks like he just socked, one of the samurai guys.
Yeah.
So, apparently he's going with it, but on your point there, I wonder is he going with it because it's like, well, the whole bar is fighting now.
Yeah.
So I guess I might as well join in, or is it because he actually agreed with him and he was convinced?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, I can see it going both ways. I could see Kirk on the show breaking things up and saying, "Wait a minute, whoa, everybody calm down." And I can also see him joining right in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just found it very odd that it seems like Sulu and Uhura really made the decision to jump into action on behalf of Echo, and Kirk had no say about it either way. So,
yeah,
just something that stood out to me. Anything you want to throw out there on this section?
Yeah. So, one thing that was interesting was you see Oshino and someone else. I'm looking at page 13, the wide panel in the middle, as they're coming through the door.
Yep.
They've got these like golden sun masks on.
Yes.
Which was kind of interesting. And I'm not sure what the purpose is of them. I wonder if it's to sort of hide their identity, or is it like just a kind of a ceremonial thing? Because she takes it off in the next page on the bottom, right? And that's when Uhura's like, Oshino? Like, I didn't know you were here.
Well, and there's another interesting question too. Since there are only 6 faces, how did she know that was Oshino? Could have been somebody else.
That is a very good point.
It turned out that it was, but as luck would have it. But yeah,
right,
she's got the mask in her hand, so you can get an even better look at that.
And it's really interesting looking. But so you've got that panel where she's taken the mask off and Uhura's like, Oshino? But if you look at that wide panel again, just before it, you can see in the background on the right, you've got Uhura, pretty obviously Uhura, and then someone in a sun mask swinging a sword at her.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
And just sort of based on those two panels, it's kind of like, did Oshino just take a swing at Uhura?
Well, there were, if you go back to page 13, the wide panel, there were 2 females, or what appear to be 2 females, with those masks on. So it could have been the other one.
Could have been. But they both have swords.
It doesn't look like Oshino has a sword in the panel where she removes her mask, though.
Yeah, well, it also doesn't look like she has a right hand.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
It just kind of stops at the sleeve, I guess.
For some reason, my mind thought it was behind the bubble, but now I don't see any.
Yeah. But then in the next panel, you see the sword in her hand as she's walking away, saying, "Please, you must stop."
Perhaps.
So it's just in the missing hand that's magically reappeared.
Maybe poor Alberto forgot to draw it.
Yeah, probably. He probably figured, well, they're just going to put a word bubble over there anyway, so
Yeah, who cares?
Why bother?
Did you notice that security officer Manning looks a lot like George Washington in a red shirt in that center panel?
Like a bald Washington.
Yeah, I love that. An interesting hairstyle. I've never seen anybody in TOS with that hairstyle.
No.
Ready to move ahead or anything else?
Yeah, no, just that was all I really had there was the whole mask thing, which I thought was an interesting touch because it made a sort of subtext to that whole fight scene that was interesting. But yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, it kind of plays into the whole ritual that happens in this next part. So maybe the masks are a part of this whole ritualistic um, killing of these defective
Yeah,
citizens.
like it almost harkens back to how the hangman would wear a
Mm-hmm.
hood
Yep.
because the hangman was always someone from the village, and they didn't want everyone to know who the hangman was.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So it defeats the purpose if they take the masks off.
Well, yeah, but well, let's say the gold key hasn't always had logic in the
No.
forefront of their writing.
No, it certainly hasn't. So let's see. We're going to pick up here on page 15, and it starts off with a captain's log, or in a log rather, that catches us up on where we are. It says Stardate 3019.15. Having landed on Rifus L, or Rifus 50, we encountered what appeared to be a totally perfect society. Now, they wish to execute innocent citizens, including our friend Echo, whose only crimes were age, disfigurement, and intelligence, dash dash, and we were powerless to stop them. All right, so Echo and the other defectives are put to death in the Garden of Eternity, while the landing party is forced to watch, except for Spock, of course, who is still in the big temple. And this is a pretty dark sequence here for Gold Key, and Uhura is pretty affected by it. And she states that how horrible it is, and they were slaughtered like their lives had no meaning, no reality. So later, Uhura and Sulu confront Ashino about the event, telling her that they felt it was really wrong of them to execute those poor people. And Uhura's words have an impact, and Ashino starts flashing back to her childhood and exclaims that she's seeing again, that she's remembering a time where she was rising up out of a lake, or no, it's a great vat, and there's a metal arm reaching down for her. And of course, the village elder is secretly watching the conversation and thinking that it's time that he has to take action against the landing party as they are causing issues with his people. So meanwhile, back to Spock, he's exploring the big temple that he found in the wilderness and discovers a cloning chamber. An old man enters the room and says he is Yamoto, overlord of this world, and, as Spock has observed, the creator of its inhabitants. He then leads Spock into a deep underground complex, which Spock is very surprised by. He calls it astonishing. Says he never expected, but this was not a planet, but a gigantic starship. And says it's a magnificent feat of engineering. So Yamato does not want to tell Spock where he comes from. Says it's unimportant. But what he's done something that no other people have done. He's achieved perfection. He's got 3 classes genetically programmed for their separate social functions, all harmony. So Spock realizes that Yamato has used his own cells to clone the third Dawn males, but is inquiring as to where he got the cells for the other Dawns that are on the planet. And Yamato says that he feels that it should be obvious, and there are a few dreams that are realized without some sacrifices, and at that point pulls out a weapon, stuns Spock, and places him on an operating table. And he says that Spock will provide a fine cell sample for a whole new strain of clones, the most superior ones yet. So we're going to stop here really quick on page 19, talk a little bit about this. So I was really scratching my head at
Mm-hmm.
the choice of words used to describe Echo's crimes in the little log piece at the beginning. His crimes were age, disfigurement, and intelligence.
Right. The age didn't seem to have anything to do with it.
No. Disfigurement. I didn't see disfigurement anywhere in there. I wasn't sure what that meant.
No, he looked perfectly normal there.
Intelligence, definitely.
Yeah, he's gotten some insight into the whole thing, and yeah, so that's spot on. But yeah, the other two, not so much.
Yeah, I think it was the disfigurement one that really threw me off. I really wasn't sure where that came from because they all look perfectly normal, and all the talk about perfection.
Right.
I don't see where that would have come in, but perhaps it was just a poor choice of words there. But I found this sequence, especially panel 3 on the first page here, that was on page 15, where they're getting vaporized.
Yeah.
It's really dark.
Mm-hmm.
Strange sound effects too. Zit. Zit.
Yeah.
I can't do them as well as you can. Swerve.
Swerve.
Yeah, and they're screaming no as looks like they're being burned alive or vaporized in this yellow burst of light. Yeah, that was dark.
Right, and then on the next page you even see their burnt sort of ashes.
Yeah, they're charred. Yeah, whatever remains of them sitting up on that dais there is, and they're smoldering.
Yeah,
there's smoke rising from them, but the panel above that on page 16, which shows the entire landing party with the exception of Spock. Even though that does not look like Nurse Chapel, that's a pretty cool female character there. The way they drew her looks really cool to me. I like that.
Yeah, it is striking.
Hair. Yeah, I thought that was very well illustrated. Although Sulu and Kirk don't look like themselves very much in that picture.
No, not so much. But I do really like the samurai on the right of the panel there, which looks like he took it straight out of some kind of photo reference.
For sure.
It's really, really good.
Yes, excellent. I like the detail on his helmet.
Yeah, especially that lion face thing.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where I was kind of taken aback by the amount of detail included on that helmet, because so much in this issue has no detail at all, or extremely little detail. I wonder what made Alberto choose to add so much detail to that. I mean, there's very fine hatching on some of it, and the side pieces on the bottom have some very intricate line detail on them. So it looked like he must have spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, just a quick count. There are over 80 studs that he drew on his helmet. Yeah,
that's impressive.
So it's quite the detailed piece.
Yeah, very, very good. And looking at the surrounding panels, nothing has that kind of detail on it.
No,
nothing at all. So very cool. So I love the fact that Uhura has such a big role in this issue. She's fighting, she's questioning things, she's standing up to Ashino, trying to convince her that what they're doing is morally wrong. I really like that Uhura,
and it works apparently.
Yeah, and it works. So I like the fact that Uhura is really becoming more of a contributing character in the next couple of issues,
instead of just someone who trips.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully we'll get some Chekhov in here at some point.
Yep, baby steps.
Baby steps.
and then fast forward to Spock, and he's in, the thing. As soon as he walks through into the temple, which we find is the cloning chamber, we see people feet, a line of feet.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And they're not in vats, right? They're not in test tubes.
Nope.
And they're lying down, much like Spock is after Yamato stuns him. I think So here's where I'm going with this. I think that those 5 are actually the samples, and that Yamato did not clone himself, despite what Spock surmises.
Very interesting theory. Well, I feel sorry for the females if that's the case, because those feet are very manly. All 5 sets
Right.
are quite big and manly. So I guess all the women on that planet have giant man feet.
Well, it's a Hobbit
theory,
world.
though.
Yeah. Or, I mean, it could just be that those are the ones that just got brought out of the vats or something. But I don't know. My first impression on it was like, hey, were those the clone originals? The cultivars.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that theory. That's a good theory. And I had thought that he would have maybe destroyed the originals just by what he plans to do with Spock later on.
Yeah, and he talks about sacrifices and all of that. Well, so another thing here, right? So this is the big reveal, right? We've got everyone are clones, not androids, as Kirk originally suspected, and the planet itself is artificial. And so I think maybe now we have an answer to the carnivore thing.
Yes.
See, so it seems like Yamato is human, right? And that he's one of those people that, like, escaped the Federation to do his, like, crazy illegal cloning experiments and build his own space utopia and all that, right? So that would be why all the carnivores why they so resemble Earth creatures. It's because they're clones of Earth creatures.
That's a good theory. I like that. I kind of thought about that a little bit myself. And I guess if Yamamoto's goal was to actually create the perfect utopia, that he would want to be responsible for creating all of the life forms there so that he had ultimate control, right, over everything, so that he could essentially create those things to, as protectors, to ward off any intruders or whatnot, and he could keep them in certain areas of the planet and not have them encroach on the cities and keep a very tight order on everything. So no, that's a good idea. That's a good thought. I wonder if we had more space in the issue, if they would have explored those other concepts.
Possibly, and then okay. So going with the possible Rifus 50. So obviously it's not the 50th planet in a solar system, right? Because it's not part of a solar system.
Nope.
What if... I'm already mentally shooting this down just as I'm saying it, because I didn't think about this retort until now, but I'll power through it here. Okay, so what if it's Rifus 50 because he also... much like creating the clones and all that, he also had iterated on the planet.
Yep.
And this was the 50th version of the planet. Like maybe he had done these sorts of experiments before. Maybe they all 49 of the previous ones failed, and 50 is the one where he finally achieved, his supposed utopia.
Or perhaps phase 1 was conducted in a lifeless underground.
Right. Phase 7, robot chickens. So the only problem with that is that if I am remembering correctly, I got to go all the way back to the beginning here. Where did they say? Oh, they didn't. Okay. So the Rifus L just came from Kirk's testimony, but then on that first page when they first discover the planet, they don't name it. And it looks like, just sort of skimming through the pages here, it looks like they don't ever bring up the name of the planet except in those flashbacks So maybe they did get that name from him. So I'm gonna stick with my original theory then that this is the 50th version of Yamamoto's planet experiment.
Well, I like that theory. I even if it's not true, I still enjoy thinking about it. That he's been working at this for a while,
Yeah,
and he's finally achieved what he thinks is the perfect. The only thing that I really wish they would have answered is where the heck he was going. Why
yeah,
the planet needs to fly around? You know, why does it need to be a
right.
starship? Why couldn't it be an actual real planet somewhere? It doesn't seem like he has any thought about, or it doesn't really even need to go anywhere because it's, that the theory is it's this perfect utopia. Why would it need
Yeah,
to have a destination, right?
the only thing that I could think of is that by keeping it mobile like that, uh, he avoids the Federation coming in and being like, "Hey, genetic manipulation, that's illegal."
Oops, well, it didn't work out. The Federation did come in.
Right, because they totally found it. But that's the only thing that I could think of as to why it would be like a rogue planet like that, and not just setting up camp on something else. But like the artificial nature of it makes sense, though,
Sure,
right?
yep,
Because then he can completely control the environment.
exactly. Yep, he doesn't have to terraform or
Yeah,
otherwise, rebuild another planet or a dead planet is what he wants. He can create the whole thing from scratch. It's just the whole where the heck are they going thing.
right. Yeah, I don't know.
Me neither. And another thing about Yamamoto and I think Spock, I feel like Spock is a little too trusting of Yamamoto in this sequence. I question the fact that Spock, number one, finds and enters this temple without bothering to radio back to Kirk.
Yeah.
And say, "Hey, dude, I found
Hey,
this
Captain
giant
Guy.
temple thing, and there's some energy readings here, and I'm going inside to check it out. So I'll be back late. Sorry, here's
Just
my location if you want to find me." But I
just put
found
some
that odd.
tinfoil over dinner.
Yeah,
keep it
keep it
warm.
warm for me. Keep it warm for me, honey. I'm coming home. And not only that, but he proceeds to go into the depths of this place again. With an alien who he's never met,
Yeah.
has no experience with, and I don't know. I just have a hard time believing he would not radio back to the landing party or the ship to say, "Hey guys, so this is what I'm doing." Because
Right.
if
Because that would be only the responsible thing to do.
yeah, well, if history dictates anything, I mean, every time they go down to a planet, for the most part, something bad happens. So, he would just think from, previous away missions that it may be a good idea to let everybody know where he's at. But
Yeah.
that was just something that had occurred to me. But
I just thought of something.
Okay.
Those 5 feet.
Hmm.
What if those are clones of Yamamoto?
Oh.
And he's been at this experiment for a while, and he just, when he dies or whatever, he just unfreezes another clone or something of himself to take over.
So there's some sort of memory personality transference that can occur into these clones. So you're saying that he has that ability too. Interesting.
Well, right, because we see with Echo, he's supposed to have a particular personality and sort of cache of abilities and propensities and stuff, right?
Yeah, he's programmed in a certain way, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's obviously got that down. So maybe he, in the whole process of all of this, he was also trying to perfect himself.
Oh, that's very Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
That is very Star Trek. Now that enhances the story. I think once again we're rewriting Gold Key Comics.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, look for the new Tricorder Transmissions republications of Gold Key Comics where we add to the stories.
Same bad art, just all new stories.
Yeah, you could probably do that. You could take screen grabs of all these frames and then redo the dialogue. and do some cutting and pasted and make some new panels.
Yeah, I mean, just so long as every sentence ends in an exclamation point, then I don't see a problem with it.
Or an ellipses.
Right.
Yeah, 4 dot ellipses, by the way, not 3 dot.
Mm-hmm. Astute observation.
Yes. All right.
But I do think that there's a lot more going on here, and it's interesting that there seems to be a whole lot more. Like it's a much more dense backstory that gets hinted at here.
Yeah.
Considering that they only have 26 pages to work with, or 25.
Yeah, and I think maybe the sweet spot may have been 28 pages. 29 pages, because it feels like 25 may be a little too short, and 32 sometimes feels a little too long, like they take up too much space with nonsense.
Right.
Maybe we could have used another page or two of backstory here to expand on it a little bit.
Yeah.
But makes for good discussion fodder.
Yeah.
All right, so picking back up on page 20, we're going to go all the way through to the end here and wrap the story up. So back in the village, we see another group of guards arriving at the landing party's quarters, and the village elder has called them there. And they have come for Oshino, who is now a rogue, and the rest of the landing party. So they have proven dangerous to the people of that world, and they must die. So Kirk orders the phasers on stun, and they're able to quickly overpower the guards. So Kirk's trying to get a hold of Spock, but is unable to communicate with him. And Kirk calls up to the Enterprise and gets a hold of Scotty, who is in command, and tells him to have the transporter room standing by, and they're going to want to get out of there fast. So the landing party grabs Oshino and goes out to look for Spock. So on a hunch, Oshino decides to lead them into the wilderness to a place called the Palace of Life, which just so happens to be the same temple where Spock is now in peril.
Very coincidental.
Yes, extremely. So deep beneath the surface of the temple, Yamato has extracted his needed samples and is about to destroy Mr. Spock when suddenly his intruder alarm system activates, letting him letting him know that there are more intruders entering the temple on the upper floors. So he goes to check on the alarm, and Spock is able to slip away, making use of his Vulcan healing abilities to overcome the paralysis. So in the palace above, Kirk, Sulu, and Oshino are discovering that row of sleeping clones that Ian made mention of. And Oshino immediately realizes that she is also a clone and proceeds to go on a rampage, tearing machinery apart. And Spock shows up, having escaped, and Oshino grabs Sulu's phaser and runs away to find Yamato. And she tells Kirk to go, return to the ship, and she's going to go destroy Yamato and put things right. So Kirk tries to stop her, but she uses the stolen phaser to seal herself in a tunnel that leads down to Yamamoto's chambers. Kirk and the others exit the temple to find there's a group of guards waiting for them and do a classic TOS beam out at the last second and avoid getting slashed up and wind up back on the bridge of the ship, and tells them to take the ship out of orbit at warp factor 4. So just as the ship leaves orbit, Yoshino kills Yamato in the lower areas of the temple and activates the planet's self-destruct mechanism and blows.
Why does it have one?
Always have one. They always have self-destruct mechanisms. And of course, that leads to the planet being blown up, as we saw on the teaser page. So, in a little bit of an epilogue, we've got Kirk speaking before the Federation Examination Board Kirk is explaining that although the Enterprise visit may have been a catalyst of the incident, he believes that the destruction of the planet and the society therein was inevitable. The board is satisfied by this explanation and decides not to file any charges against Kirk or any member of the Enterprise crew. So Kirk and the other members of the landing party is leaving. They hear a worker approach them and says, "Captain Kirk, will you have a look at this?" The man is holding a small model that was given to them by Echo. So it's something called the Space Scooper. Picked it up as it was cleaning up the remnants of Rifus 50, and it survived the Holocaust like a straw in a tornado. And we have a little comedy moment at the end here. The worker asks if they know what that is, and Spock says he thinks he can answer. It's quite probably a semi-quadrantal, psi-sided conversional nothing. Ha ha ha. And there's our TOS comedy ending. But I think that's actually a really sad ending.
Yeah, it really is.
I was bummed out by that ending.
Yeah, a sad if improbable ending.
Extremely improbable, as that was probably made of popsicle sticks,
right?
Balsa wood, something like that. But I love the fact that Scotty's in the captain's chair. On page 20, panel 4, that is a great TOS throwback. That we've got Mr. Scott left in charge of the Enterprise.
Absolutely.
So, writer did his homework on that one. Very good. Page 21, panel 1, another consistency in Gold Key. We've got some continuity here between authors. Another reference to the phasers draining. I like the fact that different authors are making the same reference, and it was not something that was really talked about often, or even maybe more than once on the original series. So that's kind of interesting continuity there. And I don't think there was any sort of planned continuity in Gold Key Comics at all.
No,
so
definitely
just a strange
not.
Coincidence, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the ending, it's kind of really tragic.
It is.
Oshino gets so mad to find out that she's a clone, which is not, like, it's not so bad being a clone, right? Like, you're still alive. That she not only kills her creator, but then blows up the entire planet, killing everyone else on the planet.
That's a hell of an executive decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was assuming that she was just going to go and, take her revenge, whatever she felt like she had to, against Yamato, but I did not really expect her to be the one that presses that button. I had assumed that, maybe Yamato, in his dying throes, decided that he wouldn't want the planet to survive, without him, and press the button, kind of like, Khan activating the Genesis device, right? Yamato spits his last breath at Yoshino, right?
Right.
But no, that wasn't the way it went. And yeah, that was a really, really rash decision on her part. And I kind of feel for all the other people that, she lived with on that planet and was friends with. And
right.
God, what a crazy split second heat of the moment decision to make.
Yeah, that needed to, probably another page of a for a coda on that, and that maybe didn't end with Spock trying to make a joke.
Really? Because nobody on the Enterprise crew really seems all that disturbed.
No, even the Board of Inquiry, they're like, nope, yeah, that's totally fine. It wasn't your fault.
Yeah, well, they were just clones anyway. Who cares?
We're satisfied. Move along.
No big deal. But yeah,
let us know if you blow up any other worlds. I mean, aren't responsible for blowing up any other worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's I would think that the Federation Board of Inquiry would have been a little bit more concerned about the loss of the technology that was there.
Right, and
technology
the life and the and all the evidence, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing left except for the small little balsa wood house model, right? And nobody escaped from that planet that we know of.
And then adding to the tragedy is a lack of sentimentality from Spock.
Yes,
who does not take the house model.
Yeah, he doesn't give a crap. It's over.
Yeah,
he's done with it.
He's like, well, I'm just gonna make a joke.
On to the next mission, please. Oh man.
Yeah.
Page 23, panel 3. Suddenly, out of nowhere, robots.
Yeah.
Why? Why are there robots?
Okay, so I tried to do some rationalization here.
Well, yeah.
And
okay.
So once you get into Yamamoto's lair, if you will.
Okay.
You don't want to use the carnivores, right?
Oh,
because
no.
They're a bit less predictable and all that. So okay, robots to defend against anyone who actually gets through that gate. That's the best I could do.
But then later on, I mean, he's got regular guards in armor with spears that go to collect the deviants. I mean, it would only stand. He's got an unlimited supply of clones. He could just have a bunch of them hanging around. Well, no, wait a minute. Actually, I'm second guessing my own argument because maybe he wouldn't want clones there because there was a higher probability that they'd figure out that they were clones because they'd see other ones being made. So
and then have the sort of reaction that Oshino had.
Yeah, no, good. There you go. I just unraveled my own argument. So maybe robots do work. All right. This is kind of like my Ewok theory and why the Ewoks are actually appropriate in Return of the Jedi. But that's for another podcast.
Yeah, I want to hear that one.
In defense of the Ewoks. Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. I don't want to go into it here because I don't want to get accused of mixing two franchises in one podcast.
Of crossing the streams?
Yes, no crossing of the Star Wars stream, but perhaps we can get into that later. But okay, I can buy into the robots now. I'm cool with that. Thanks for clearing that up for me.
Anytime. So when they walk into the chamber, Kirk and Oshino and the rest of the landing party.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Oshino starts freaking out. Yep. She's having her "oh my god, we're all clones" thing. Except she doesn't say, right? Because they're looking right at the row of feet.
Yes. And
she doesn't say like, "oh my god, it's me" or whatever, right? She just sees a bunch of kind of vat-grown people.
Yeah, she just screams no. So Kirk is the one that actually says they're clones.
Right, and so I'm considering that further evidence for those feet belonging to clones of Yamamoto.
Well, then Nurse Chapel makes an extreme extrapolation then on 22 the final panel where Kirk says, "Good heavens, clones." Chapel says, "Captain, that means all the people, even Oshino." That's a pretty big leap if the clones laying there are all Yamamoto clones.
Well, so maybe though
the same person.
Yeah, but maybe within the view of them as they walk in. So like we're just seeing the feet, but maybe there's also, test tube people.
Perhaps.
In view, and then so like in my mind, that's what's triggering Oshino because she sees herself in one of them, right?
Yeah, no, that's possible. There's probably a lot more out of frame than in frame. I'd be freaking out about that space age soda machine on the left. That's pretty cool looking over there. I wonder what that's for.
It's for Nuka-Cola.
Oh boy, and Fallout references without Claire. Oh man.
Oh, sorry.
And doesn't Security Officer Manning kind of look a little Picardish?
A little bit. Like if Picard had a 1970s like Magnum PI mustache.
Oh, I don't really see a mustache on his face in this picture. It didn't look like a mustache in on page 22, the final panel. It kind of looks like he's frowning, but I guess it could be a mustache. They didn't draw his hair ring on the sides.
No.
Like in the other panels. He kind of looks a little bit just like a regular bald guy.
Yeah. So proto Picard there.
Yeah, 25, panel 1. I guess we're back to the wrong transporter room again.
Yeah. So the pad is at least
the pad is
close.
way off. I mean, look at how many circles are on the floor. 1, 2.
Yeah, but there's circles on the floor,
and
the floor is a circle.
They're not. Those transporter pads are in rows, not in a circle.
Yeah, but the controls are I don't even know what's going on there.
I have no idea. But again, and the next panel with the silhouette of the Enterprise, way off.
Yeah.
Way off proportionally. That is really weird looking. The nacelles are like super short.
Yep.
Barely past the back of the fuselage, so I don't know what's up with that. That's really strange.
Yeah, I think it was just whenever they look weird, whenever the shots of the Enterprise look weird like that, I'm sticking with my original hypothesis of that he just, rushed those.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. He was spending too much time on that ornate helmet from earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's like, damn it, I knew I shouldn't have spent 2 days on that helmet. Son of a bee. But, a couple more broad topics on this, and we were kind of goofing on this briefly before, but number one, I mean, I guess I can understand Yamato building in a self-destruct mechanism into this planet, but is the button labeled? How does she know what that does? And wouldn't you have some sort of code on it so that you wouldn't accidentally hit the button, or somebody just didn't walk in, like the guy that cleans up doesn't come in and accidentally lean on it, like always seems to happen in Star Trek?
Or maybe like a Touch ID sensor.
Yeah, something. I mean, I know that self-destruct voice codes are not very sophisticated in Star Trek times. I'm looking at you, Star Trek 3. But it literally, it's the last page, the first panel, she presses a button.
Yeah.
Click button.
And her dialogue makes it clear that she knows she's blowing up the planet.
Right. And exactly. And another question for you about that panel specifically is, so she is down in the inner sanctum of Yamamoto's lab. What is she looking at out that window?
It's
dirt?
Space?
Rocks?
I think it's a view screen.
That looks more like a window, but okay. Yeah, maybe it's a view screen. It looks like a window to me.
Yeah.
It's inset into the wall. So, very window-like. But you're probably right. It's a view panel. Maybe it's a view screen.
And also, as Kirk says in his voiceover, once again, we can only imagine what followed. So all of this is just, presumably she was waxing poetic about Sulu talking about the rest of the universe and looking out of a view screen and pressing the blatantly labeled and unsecure self-destruct button.
Well, at least the button makes a satisfying click when you press it.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've got to. You can't just have like a little rubbery self-destruct button.
No, not at all.
Come on.
And it's right next to that view screen. In fact, that control panel is so inconveniently placed next to that view screen. I mean, somebody could have just sat on that and watched TV.
Right. Yeah.
And they just would have inadvertently sat on the self-destruct button and blew.
And that's why the robots float.
Oh.
It's so they don't sit on the self-destruct button because they just don't sit. They just float.
I like that. Okay, so one more minor observation before we talk about the really big issue at hand here. And this is something that I both like and loathe. The last two panels, which show this guy handing the little house, or trying to hand over the little house.
Yeah.
He's wearing a hat. Nobody in Star Trek wears hats. Nobody. And it's like a baseball cap. He's hanging around the Federation buildings, and he's wearing a hat.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's, he's clearly meant to be a janitor, and so he's got like a janitor hat, I guess.
Yeah, he's got a blue shirt and a green hat, but it looks an awful lot like a baseball cap. And one panel, the brim is green, and the next panel, the brim is gold.
Yeah. So, are you ready to have your mind blown?
Sure.
In the cage, we saw two pieces, but not combined in the same scene, but so of the dress uniform. The one is when they see Vina as the Orion woman dancing.
Yep.
And you've got a guy in a brown uniform.
Yep.
And that was intended to be the Starfleet dress uniform that they designed for the pilot, right?
Yep.
And that uniform included a hat, which he's not wearing in that scene, but you do see the hat that they made in Pike's quarters, sitting on a shelf.
Check that out.
So, in fact, they did wear hats in the original series.
Well, we didn't see them wearing hats.
Oh, come on.
Well, at least we know now that Starfleet janitors wear hats. That may make this essential. I don't know.
Yeah. Of everything else, that's the thing that makes it essential.
Well, it adds something to the universe, at least.
Right.
So I have a real problem with Kirk and company getting off the hook. This just seems really wrong to me. That Starfleet just shrugs it off. They're like, yeah, okay. All right, yeah, I get it. Yeah, you're not responsible. They sure as hell are responsible.
Yeah, it is directly their fault.
It completely. And, the whole excuse that, well, it would have happened anyway, whether or not we intervene, that's BS. That is a completely illogical argument, and I can't believe Spock would stand there and not object to that argument. Because you have no idea how that society would have evolved.
Right. That's like saying, like, Vol would have destroyed itself at some point anyway, so, we were just helping it along.
Yeah, this is... I had a huge problem with that. This is definitely, if I was to rewrite Gold Key, I would definitely rewrite it in such a way that they were not responsible, and their interference didn't have anything to do with it. So, I don't know. Did you?
Or would have kept that they were responsible for it and had them suffer consequences.
Well, we can't do that. We can't have our beloved Enterprise crew suffer consequences. They have to be out there in space.
I mean, God, like, what would you do? Like, demote Kirk?
It's too early for that. But I can't think of any way to spin this in my own head that makes me buy into them not having any consequences or not being responsible for this. It doesn't compute.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel right, and in fact, that whole last page, the ending, because the climax of the story is incredibly tragic, as we were talking about, and it's kind of a downer, right? And then it almost seems like just those last three panels, they're like, well, you know what? Let's turn that frown upside down.
Yeah, let's smile. Let's completely brush off the fact that an entire race of people have been obliterated.
Right. let's brush aside the genocide. Yeah, and we'll have Spock make a joke about the remains of this society, and
The one thing left from this society, which you would think that Spock would consider significant.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's pretty much the item that started the whole downward spiral.
Yep.
Right. So
yeah. That ending, at least the last three panels there definitely do fall a bit flat. It's interesting having the whole thing framed as a board of inquiry.
Yes.
But the actual execution of it, just doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah. Well, any other thoughts that you want to bring up before we get to our essential voting?
No, I feel like we covered it. I just I think that there was a lot more going on in this story than made it onto the page.
Yes. I would agree with you there, and this is one of those situations where I wish we had some background information from, or an interview with the guy who wrote these, with a little more information about maybe things that he would have wanted to put in but couldn't fit.
Yeah.
Ideas that he had, things like that would be really nice.
Well, apparently he's still alive.
Maybe we could get him.
Let's see if we can track him down.
Yeah, why not? Can't hurt. We'll see what we can figure out. But so I'm gonna give this issue an essential yes.
Yes.
I think for a couple of reasons. One is I really like the introduction of the Federation Board of Inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's cool. So we're adding something to the Federation. We're adding something to, Starfleet in general. I like the fact that we're getting some more backstory and information on the things that go on, and the fact that they actually do look into the goings on these starships, and they do inquire about questionable things that Starfleet captains and their crews do, because we often wonder, watching the original series, do they ever question Kirk about any of these things that he does? Because weren't we thinking on one of these prior episodes about what did Starfleet headquarters think when they read or listen to Kirk's captain's logs?
Oh yeah.
What must they be thinking?
Like, oh my God, what have we done?
Yeah,
we let this madman on the loose.
Yeah, I like the fact that Gold Key is saying that, yeah, Starfleet is definitely interested in what's going on. They play an active role in analyzing the actions of their captains and crews that are out there. I like the fact that Chekhov finally appears.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, he's been mentioned.
Yep.
Nice to see his face in there. That's pretty cool. Trying to think if there's anything else that I would call this essential for. I mean, I'll throw in some great Uhura character moments.
Mm-hmm,
I think it's great to see her evolving in Gold Key, and evolving with different authors, by the way, penning good moments for her in different issues. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, because in fact, it was this author, if I'm not mistaken, which I am, so never mind. I was going to say that that was the one, where Uhura was just there to trip, basically, and have McCoy fend off against the thing with the phaser, but that was the issue after the Mummies of Haitius 7.
Yeah, the vegetable monsters.
Right.
The vegetable men.
Yes.
So what is your essential vote?
I'm definitely voting this as essential. This was actually, as I said, there's a lot more that I think was going on in this story than made it onto the page, but there's enough sort of clues for you to pick up and build this I think, really rich backstory to everything that's going on there. And it's a really intriguing story. It hits on some very TOS-esque themes, right? Like, controlled societies and that sort of thing, and the right of living beings to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness and all that sort of stuff. Sorry to get all Amerocentric there, but and it felt, I almost want to say grown up, but that's not quite it. But so it felt a whole lot more cohesive though than a lot of the other Gold Key issues that we've seen up till now.
Yep, I agree.
Right, where there seemed to be, sort of a lack of logic in the story a lot of the time. And this one, it really held up. I mean, until those last 3 panels, everything really held up. And we had some really great character moments, not just from the Starfleet crew, but from the inhabitants of this world.
Yeah, Oshino stuck out to me.
Yeah, her and Echo, I thought, were really compelling characters.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, their whole society was, I thought, kind of compelling. At first you're like, oh boy, everything's Japanese, that's in space. Why? But then it all sort of starts to make sense once you realize that this is an engineered society.
Yep.
And I don't know. It feels like it should be essential. If you're going to be reading the Gold Key, right, you can skip, issues where you're going up against plant creatures that, hit the ship or whatever, right? Or planets ruled by people named Justin and stuff like that, right? But this would be one that you would want to include, because I feel like you would be missing the gold of Gold Key. You know what I mean?
So I guess it's safe to say that you feel that the Mummies of Haitius-7 legacy has been lived up to?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should really keep our eye on this Warner guy. He seems to be doing a good job with the Gold Key, the Star Treks.
I agree, and I think that this issue does a lot to alleviate the pacing issues of a lot of the prior issues. I feel like this one moved at a better pace. It didn't drag. I mean, for being a very dialogue heavy issue, I feel like it was appropriately spaced out and things felt like they happened in a natural progression. And although the wrap up panels were awkward, it still felt right. So I didn't feel like they wasted a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think that may have actually had a lot to do with the fact that it was only 25 pages. Yes. When you're forced into a constraint like that, you realize that you can't spend 4 minutes on Kirk fighting off robots or rockets, rather.
Yeah.
Like we had in what was that, the last issue or the issue before? I forget.
That was the last issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like those sorts of pacing issues that when you're going through something, you're like, oh, well, I still got 25 pages, right? When instead you get to that point of the story, like when the carnivores are, attacking the crew and everyone, the decision to draw that out suddenly becomes a lot more, it comes into focus more, right? Because you're like, well, I could go into that more and have, kind of an exciting action sequence, but I've only got 20 pages left, and that sort of, because art really strives, creativity strives on restrictions and limitations. Exactly. If you give someone an unlimited budget and unlimited time and say, create something really great, they're probably not going to, right? But if you say, okay, I'm giving you this amount of money, you have this much time to do this in, here's the criteria that you have and these are the tools that you can use,
Yep.
then people are going to find ways to be really creative and get the most out of what they're given.
Yep. I agree.
And I think that that's happening. My hunch is that because I've already gone ahead and read the next issue, but everyone's going to have to obviously wait until our next Gold Key episode to hear our review of it. But the next issue I also liked, and it as we discovered, that was another 25 issue thing. And my hunch is that with these shorter issues, we're going to see a lot tighter stories. This Warner guy wrote quite a few of them. I suspect that he's definitely going to be a one to watch. He comes up with really, really interesting stories. And I think that the shorter page count with him writing is going to be, I'm calling it now. Those are going to be the issues to watch.
All right. Well, we will have to see if your prediction comes true. I'm curious. And I have not yet read the next issue, so I'm understandably curious.
It's a good one.
See, a lot of Trek references tonight. So I guess that brings us to the end of our coverage of issue number 26 of Gold Key Comics. And as always, you can find us on the Tricorder Transmissions.com. We have all of our series available there. And we're also on social media, Facebook /the Tricorder Transmissions, TTT_pod on Twitter. And we have our personal Twitter feeds out there that you can also find. I am J_Benge. And where can they find you, Ian?
At Ian128K.
Awesome. So we would love to hear your guys' feedback on this episode. If you would be so kind as to contact us on any of our social media, or if you are so inclined to jump over to iTunes and give us a star review or a written review, we would very much appreciate your feedback and helping us promote the show and bring in new listeners. So thanks a lot for that. Ian, anything you want to say in closing?
Don't forget about Redbubble.
Yes, you're right. Redbubble.com. There is Tricorder merchandise out there. If you're interested in t-shirts and mugs and buttons and all sorts of great stuff, head on over to redbubble.com. We also have a link to it on our website, tricordertransmissions.com. You can go there and click directly to our merchandise page. So lots of good stuff there. Yeah, and keep your eyes open for some new stuff coming very soon. I have a couple designs I'm working on for new t-shirt designs and mug designs. So keep your eyes peeled. We're going to have a new one coming for each of our series very, very soon. So thanks again.
That's going to be cool.
For listening, and we will see you next time.